Shalom. Call Haloyamla Yahweh, Bahashum, Yahweh Bahashum, Racha Kodash. Brakatah Yahweh, Brakatah Yahweh Brakatah Racha Kodash. Bahashum, Yahweh Bahashum, Racha Kodash. Shalom and double honors to the elder apostles of Great Millstone. And Shalom to the elders in Akim wa Akwath. Shalom. I want to go into a quick video entitled July 4th is in the Bible. When you read here in Daniel chapter 7, there's a particular verse, and then when you go into the history of it, you can see where Independence Day was prophesied by the Most High. So everything, all the events in the history of mankind is all detailed and outlined and prophesied in the Holy Scriptures. So we'll go ahead and get right to it, get a couple precepts, get a little bit of history, and then go ahead and close out. So right here, we're going to start in Daniel chapter 7, verse 3. And 4 beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. As you know, when the Most High reference man as beasts, and what makes a man a living soul is the commandments from the covenant from the Most High, and makes him a living soul and makes him above the beastly man of the carnal fleshly nature. So these 4 beasts are 4 kingdoms. And we'll go ahead and get verse 17. These great beasts, which are 4 kings. And we know 4 kings represents a nation. So 4 different kingdoms, which shall arise out of the earth. So as we read in Ecclesiastes chapter 3 in the last video, a time to plant and a time to pluck up. So each one of these kingdoms were going to be planted and plucked up. The 4th beast is going to be plucked up by the Messiah. Well, technically, the 4th beast is going to be burnt by the thermonuclear missiles, which the Most High is going to do by Russia and all of its allies over there in the Far East. And then the Messiah is going to destroy the Russians. But so these 4 beasts are going to rule. So the first beast was the Babylonian Empire their greatest Babylonian king of that time was Nebuchadnezzar, in which the Jews, the southern kingdom, went into captivity under. So it began with the Babylonians, was the first beast. The second beast to follow was going to be the Medes and the Persians, the Medo-Persian Empire. And then the empire that was going to defeat the Persians and the Medes were the Greeks, so-called white race. And that was the beginning of Esau Edom, so-called white race rulership in the earth. And then after the Greeks, the Greek Empire morphed into the Greco-Roman Empire, or better known as just simply the Roman Empire, with the foundation of the Greeks, of the language and their literature and their philosophies from the Greeks. And then that 4th beast is the Roman Empire, and that 4th beast was revived through America today, the whore. And the NATO is on top of that beast as well, being directed by the whore. And so we'll go ahead and go back up to verse 7. It says, after this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, this is the Roman Empire, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly. And it had great iron teeth. What does an animal do with its teeth? It bites, it fights, and make war like a lion, the way he wages wars with his teeth. So that teeth represents, and how does man fight? With military. So it's the military might of the Roman Empire. And that iron teeth represents because the statue, the iron legs of the statue of Daniel in Daniel chapter 2 is that is the Roman Empire. And then also a key detail is that the Roman Empire was the first nation to ever use iron weapons. That was the first time, iron and brass weapons. It was the first time that was done with the iron. Because iron is when you forge it into a sword, it's stronger than any other metal. As the elder apostle Tahar has brought out, and elder apostle Kabar. And so when you forge these metals into a weapon, a sword, the iron is stronger than the gold. The gold is more valuable and precious, and a more precious metal and more valuable metal than the iron. But the iron, when forged into a weapon, is the strongest iron. It's the strongest metal. So that's what that iron teeth is right here. Great iron teeth, the iron military weapons of the Roman Empire. And continuing on, it says it devoured and break in pieces and stamped the residue with the feet of it. So that's just showing you how dominant the Roman Empire was. The Roman military was. It was the strongest military in the history of that in that era of weaponry and the old battlefield military fighting. It devoured and brake in pieces and stamped the residue with the feet of it, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. So it was diverse from all the other beasts before it. How? Because the Babylonian Empire, all the kingdoms before the Roman Empire, they all ruled with the king, and the king, when he died, his sons took over, and it was an heirship. And the fourth beast, the Roman Empire, was different from the Babylonians and the Persians and Medes and even the Greeks, because it was no longer about a family bloodline king ruling, the descendants ruling through that bloodline. The Roman Empire was the first to have a Congress, and with the whole 300 Congress members in the old ancient Roman Empire, and they elected leaders that they felt was the strongest leader to lead the country. That was never like that in the history of the kingdoms and the earth. And so, and that's how this is the fourth beast revived in America, because how they do the same. They have the exact same government structure of the certain, of electing presidents and having Congress, 3 branches, executive, legislative, and judicial branches, and the Supreme Courts and all of that, So this is Rome all over again, with a blend of all the old heathen kingdoms of the Babylonian Empire, ancient Egypt Empire, Sodom and Gomorrah, what that was about. So this is the glory of kingdoms, with the foundation of the Roman Empire and the governmental structure of the Congress and everything, and the proceedings, how they lay out their laws. So that's how the fourth beast was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns, and that's a key too, because that's going to the future of the fourth beast in the revised Roman Empire, America. Because when you go into you can Google, it's called the Treaty of Rome, back in like 1958, in that era. During that time frame is when they formed the Treaty of Rome, aka NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and that's the 10th, because when it first formed, it was 10 foundational countries from over in Europe linked up with the whore, which is America, and they formed the 10 horns, and the whore sit on top of those 10 horns, guiding and directing the affairs throughout the earth today, putting sanctions on people through the UN, so-called United Nations, and through their military might as well. And then verse 8, I considered the horns, and behold the 10 horns. So Daniel is observing these 10 horns on the top of that beast, that fourth beast, which is the Roman Empire revised. So Daniel was watching is considering these 10 horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn. So that little horn is America, because America, it came up out of the British Empire. There came up among them another little horn, before whom there were 3 of them excuse me. It says, before whom there was 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. And how do you pluck up something? That's a violent act. So you pluck them up through war. So it was plucked up through the wars. So there were wars that occurred when that little horn emerged. It had 3 wars. plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of man. That goes into that Congress and the Roman Empire revised, and the whole order and structure of the government. And in mouth speaking great things, and that speaking great things goes into speaking blasphemy against the Most High, and pride, being lifted up in pride and arrogance. So we'll see, sometimes you can get the translation comparison here. This New Living Translation is a good, sometimes it can go off. That's why you have to be rooted before you go into certain translations to get certain, because sometimes the other translations can lay it out in layman's terms, so you can get a little bit more deeper, broken down understanding. But the KJV, King James Version, is the most accurate to the ancient text. So right here in the New Living Translation, it says, as I was looking at the horns, suddenly another small horn appeared among them. 3 of the first horns were torn out by the roots to make room for it, and that's through the war. This little horn had eyes like human eyes and a mouth that was boasting arrogantly. So we know that Esau Edom speaks very proud and bold and arrogantly against everyone on earth, and Esau, it seemed like Esau's favorite thing to do was to blaspheme the Most High and His only begotten Son and the Holy Scriptures. So that's the Roman Empire, and we're going to go ahead and get some details on that. So, because over here in the Americas, Christopher Columbus, he came over here first, and he touched down, and his roots got rooted in the island area over there, Caribbean islands, the island of Hispaniola with Cuba, with the Dominican Republic and Haiti, all of that over there, and the Caribbean islands with Jamaica and Barbados, all of those regions over there, right? So Spaniards first touched down over there in the islands. That's as far as the Spaniards got. And then also the French and the Britons also came over here, and also Portuguese, the Portuguese people over there down south. That's why the Brazilians speak Portuguese, and other ones over there over in that area. So the point I'm trying to make is that the 3 horns, they were rooted over here in the Americas, Spain, France, and Great Britain. Great Britain through the 13 colonies before America became the United States of America, quote unquote. It was the 13 colonies. The 13 colonies from who? From Britain, that had put colonies over here in the Americas. And then so that's what happened with that, and then so the representatives, Britain had sent representatives over here to run the 13 colonies. And then what happened is that they had a war with the French. And then so that was the first war. And that's how the French got uprooted from the Americas over here, because they had their French and Indian War. And we'll go ahead and get that real quick. So right here it says French and Indian War. The French and Indian War was a theater of the 7 Years' War, which pitted the North American colonies of the British Empire against those of the French, each side being supported by various Native American tribes. And so that's a key nugget too. In their wars, who was always present? The Israelites, the Northern Kingdom and the Southern Kingdom. We would help them in their wars. They would always recruit a bunch of us as the slaves, and draft them into their wars that they were having with other Edomites, because this was all about them. This was all about Edomites, so-called white races, white tribes, trying to have dominion over here in the Americas. So that's why it's called the French and Indian War, because the Indians, so-called Indians, the Northern Kingdom, the lost 10 tribes, were joining up and linking up with the French. They linked up with the French. There were Native Americans that had that was in the army with the French, and there was some in the army with the British colonies, which became America later. But basically, the tribes were kind of fighting against each other on different Edomite nations, fighting against each other to try to get this land over here, which was pretty, unique. But that's part of the curses that we were under, and it was just chaos going on at that time. And so the British colonies, with Britain help as well, they defeated the French, and that first horn, the first of the three horns, were uprooted, was plucked up. The French, and then you had the second one. Well, this was actually the third one, so I'm gonna go here first. So the Spanish American. So let's go back real quick. So the start date of that French and Indian War, which got the French up out of here, which uprooted that first horn over here in Americas. It started in 1754, and the war lasted until about 1763, right here. So then the Spanish American War, that's actually the third one, the third horn that got plucked up, but we're going to go here real quick. So the Spanish American War, little details, it says the Spanish American War was a period of armed conflict between Spain and the United States. Hostilities began in the aftermath of the internal explosion of USS Maine in Havana Harbor in Cuba, leading to United States intervention in the Cuban War of Independence. So they helped out. So basically, it was Spanish-American War. The Americans went against them, and they won that war. So the dates is showing April 21st, 1898 through December 10th, 1898. So it lasted about 6 months. No, about 8 months. So this show you right here that that's that second horn that got uprooted. So the first horn, well, that's the third and last horn. So the first horn was the French, and here's the second horn right here. This is the one that gave the independence, the American Revolutionary War, the war that the 13 colonies of representatives over here fought against the Britons to get their independence from the Britons stranglehold that they had on them over here. So American Revolutionary War, the American Revolutionary War, it was April 19th, 1775 through September 3rd, 1783, also known as the Revolutionary War. So boom, we'll get a little bit more right here. It says the American Revolutionary War, also known as the Revolutionary War or American War of Independence, secured American independence from Great Britain. Fighting began on April 19th, 1775, followed by the Declaration of Independence on July 4th, 1776. The American patriots were supported by France and to a lesser extent Spain, in a conflict taking place in North America, the Caribbean, and Atlantic Ocean. So that proves right there that's the second of those three horns that got plucked up by that little horn, because America emerged from from the Britons, because the Britons had a stranglehold of the 13 colonies over here, and the reason why it became America, the reason why they had fought against the Britons, because the Britons were imposing a tax on the representatives in the 13 colonies over here, and they were tired of paying taxes because they wanted representation. They wanted a voice in the British Parliament. Basically, they're in the British government. They wanted a voice now, and have say so in affairs and things of that nature. And the Britons said no, but they wanted them. But they kept tax. They said no, but keep paying these taxes. So they didn't want to give them They didn't want to give them a slice of authority and power in the government, but they were taxing them, so they felt oppressed, and so they wanted to break free of that. So that's why they had the American Revolutionary War, and then the France helped them, and then a little bit as well Spain did. You already know they won't speak on it, but just like the French and Indian War, so-called Indian War, the Northern Kingdom, you already know that they had us in their war too, fighting against the Britons as well, and that was the more than likely the biggest aid that they received was from the slaves, us at that time. So That's how Independence Day is in the Holy Scriptures, because those three horns who were over here in the Americas. France, the greatest influence was France, Britain with the 13 colonies, which became America, and then Spain, which got uprooted in late 1800s. So, so July 4th is in the Holy Scriptures, and through the history and understanding what those three horns represent, that represents three different kingdoms. And so the 13 colonies emerged, became America, and that was prophesied directly here. It was a golden nugget there of those three horns being plucked up by that little horn that emerged out of that 13 colonies, which is now America. But yeah, so I just want to kind of go into that. This was so July 4th was prophesied in the Holy Scriptures, and we proved it with the scriptures and with the history to get that understanding on it. So with that being said, I hope this video was edifying. Till next video, I say, Shalom.